Tonight, provincial leaders face off in Toronto.
You have the easiest job if you just sit there and criticize.
Respectfully, this is the job that you signed up for 4 years ago.
The leaders of the province's four major parties go head-to-head on the big issues a final time in the only televised debate of this election campaign. Plus,
this is no consolation. No years will be enough.
An impaired driver who killed a woman and her 3 young daughters in Brampton almost 2 years ago is sentenced to 17 years in prison. And
you should never have the much hate you have to go in. It takes 10 lives,
residents in Buffalo continue to process their grief and anger as a memorial grows outside the supermarket where 10 people were killed in a shooting that police are investigating as a racist hate crime. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. The driver responsible for a deadly impaired driving crash in Brampton 2 years ago has been sentenced to 17 years behind bars. Brady Robertson killed a mother and her 3 young daughters while speeding with 8 times the legal limit of THC in his body. The sentence is one of the longest criminal driving punishments ever handed down in Ontario. But as Ali Chiasson reports, it brings little comfort to the victim's family.
This is no consolation. No years will be enough.
The Crown argued for 23 years. The defense wanted 7. Today, the judge ruled in between that on the higher end, sentencing Brady Robertson to 17 years in prison for killing Carolina Casulo and her 3 young daughters, Clara, Liliana, and Mila.
No one is the same anymore. We're constantly mourning what was and what will never be.
The impact on the family made an impact on the sentence. Justice Sandra Kapanecchia noted the crash, quote, unlawfully caused the death of an entire family. She also referenced Robertson's lengthy driving record, having 15 convictions at the time. Just 2 days prior to the deadly crash, he spotted passed out behind the wheel in the middle of a busy street, speeding off after people try to intervene. All aggravating factors that helped Justice Kapanecchia arrive at 17 years, one of the longest criminal driving sentences ever handed down in Ontario.
It's a huge jump, and I think it's going to be appealed.
It's 7 more years than Marco Muzzo got for impaired driving, causing the death of 4 members of the Neville Lake family and injuring 2 others back in 2015. Even Muzzo's driving ban was only 12 years. Robertson can't drive for 34 years.
I don't feel sorry for him, but I'm just saying from a legal standpoint, we have to look at these sentences and compare them to other cases, because they have kind of precedential value.
This attorney thinks Robertson's team won't only appeal his sentence, but try again to dispute that he was actually impaired by the THC in his system.
Mr. Robinson deserves a very heavy sentence. He's where he needs to be, but I just think that this legal odyssey is not over.
Robertson was given credit for time served, so realistically he'll be in prison for just over 14 years. Meanwhile, the Casulos, like the Neville Lakes, will mourn the rest of their lives.
We have each other, because that's all we've got. That's all we've got.
It's a club you don't want to belong to, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Brampton.
Memorials continue to grow outside a Buffalo supermarket that was the scene of a deadly shooting on Saturday. The rampage left 10 people dead and 3 others injured, almost all of them Black. Investigators say the attacker traveled to the supermarket with the goal of killing as many Black people as possible. Tonight, we're hearing from the family of the shooting's oldest victim, an 86-year-old woman. Stephen D'Souza has more from Buffalo.
My mother was an angel. My mother was... She was my mother. You know, you can't replace your mother.
The pain is still raw for Garnell Whitfield. His mother, Ruth, was the oldest victim in Saturday's shooting. She had just left a nearby nursing home, where for the last 8 years, she used to visit her ailing husband. He was the love of her life, but Whitfield says they haven't figured out how to tell his father she's gone.
We don't know what's in his best interest, how he will take this news.
Many here are focusing their anger on the suspect, who specifically targeted this neighborhood and its predominantly Black residents.
That's evil. And for a kid that young to have that much evil in his heart, I really feel like, he really, we need to do better.
All 10 victims have been identified, including 72-year-old Kat Massey, who last year wrote to the local paper, calling for action to address gun violence. And 67-year-old Hayward Patterson, a deacon who often shuttled people to and from the store to get their groceries. The store is at the heart of this community. The only grocery store in the area, it was a hub, which makes the shooting that much more devastating.
He studied that it was an important hub, but there's more like him. There's more like him across these United States of America.
Civil rights lawyer Ben Crump called for accountability for those online and on TV that promote the ideology that allegedly motivated the gunman.
What happened on Saturday was an act of domestic terrorism. And we have to define it as such.
Garnell and his family fought back tears to lead a call for change.
What are you willing to do so that the next time it's not you standing here before your broken-hearted family?
He took away my mother and my best friend. How dare you? How dare you?
Police today released a chilling new detail. Had the accused gunman not been caught on Saturday, he had plans to continue to other locations nearby. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Buffalo.
The supermarket at the center of the shooting has become the focal point for a neighborhood's grief. A steady stream of people have been going there to leave notes and flowers in honor of the victims. They've also been opening up about the impact of the shooting on the community. I spoke to Talia Ricci earlier about what she's been seeing and hearing at the scene.
This sense of coming together really hasn't stopped since Saturday. It's been 2 days and the memorials around me continue to grow. New food tents are popping up. Even on our drive down to the scene today, a volunteer tried to pass us a bag of potatoes through the window. People are coming down here simply to comfort their neighbors, and it's so evident that this community is close because almost everyone I've spoken to has told me they had some sort of connection to one of the victims, and I think that's what's brought out so many helpers over the last couple of days.
Sometimes when you're loving, peaceful people, outside influences try to disrupt that. So we're trying to build that back and heal some of the hurt that's going on in our community right now.
People are taking care of each other. I can honestly say that because I know everybody, and everybody is in the same situation. Nobody has slept. I don't think there's one person in this city from the east side that have gotten a good night's sleep.
So as you saw, people are coming together, but at the same time, people are also very angry. We know this was a racially motivated attack, and so now this community is forced to process the loss of 10 lives and also confront those very heavy emotions, and that's brought a lot of the people that I've spoken with to tears.
18 years old, go to a store and take all those... For him to take all those lives at 18 with so much hate in his heart, Like, how do you hate people that much and do that? Like, yo, how do you hate people that much? And then I gotta explain to my 15-year-old son that no matter how tough things get, never have that much hate in your heart. You should never have that much hate in your heart to go in to take 10 lives, like. It's crazy because like we on the national stage once again for all the wrong reasons.
Now, as you heard earlier, another challenge this community is facing is that this is the only grocery store in the neighborhood. So people have been mobilizing to ensure that people in the area can still access groceries, and they're doing that through a community fridge around the corner. The store itself is offering a shuttle from this location to another one of their locations. But Kelda, it's just so clear that even after this investigation is over, it's going to take a long time for this community to heal.
Yeah, definitely a long road ahead. Thanks so much, Talia. York Region Police are putting the public on alert after a series of daylight carjackings. Now, police shared video of 4 recent carjackings in the region, each targeting owners of luxury vehicles, but using different approaches to steal the cars each time. Now, in one, the suspects appear to intentionally cause an accident to get other drivers to stop. The suspect forcefully pulls the driver from the car and then takes off. Now, in the other carjackings, they took place at a gas station, a mall parking lot, and in a residential driveway. Police are urging drivers to trust their instincts and be aware of their surroundings. The leaders of Ontario's 4 main political parties were in Toronto this evening, taking part in the only televised debate of this election campaign. The leaders squaring off on big issues like affordability and healthcare, with some jabs along the way. Lisa Shing has the highlights.
I just want to remind you, under yourself and the former Premier Kathleen Wynne, you destroyed this province.
The provincial leaders' debate kicked off with questions about the cost of living, with PC leader Doug Ford and Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca squaring off.
The economy was going downhill quicker than the Canadian bobsled team.
You're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts, Mr. Ford.
A lot of the attacks were aimed at Ford, not surprisingly, since the PCs are leading in the polls, and the other leaders, including Green Party leader Mike Schreiner and NDP leader Andrea Horwath, had to convince the public Ford isn't fit to lead the province for another 4 years.
Mr. Ford, have you talked to a nurse lately? Have you talked to a nurse about how disrespected they feel?
This is the premier that basically had a tantrum and tore out EV charging stations when he first took office.
There were also some feisty exchanges on other issues like healthcare.
Where were you when all these decisions were being made? Were you out getting a coffee at the cabinet table?
And on infrastructure.
If it was up to you and up to the three of you, you wouldn't build nothing. You would rather protest.
I'd build transit. I'd build.
And a jab at Horwath from Ford about several unions supporting the PCs this election campaign.
The Boilermakers don't support you. Leona doesn't support you anymore. And the electrical workers don't support you. You've lost touch. You're out of touch with the hardworking men and women.
I think you need to look in the mirror, Mr. Ford.
Ford's response to the pandemic came up too. Del Duca criticized the PCs for some controversial measures he brought in last year.
Why did you tell little kids like my own daughters that they couldn't go to playgrounds and that police should have more power to card?
It's easy to sit back from the sidelines when you didn't have to make the tough decisions. When we came into office, our healthcare system was broken.
Ford was the only leader who referred to a binder of notes, his aim to avoid making mistakes. The others needed to make a splash. Whether those tactics worked will be more clear come Election Day. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can find more highlights from tonight's debate on our website. That's at cbc.ca/Toronto. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, a little bit of rain to start off the work week after an absolutely gorgeous weekend.
Yeah, just such an incredible run of temperatures, Kelda, that were above seasonal. And even if we start with a look at our daytime highs, just remembering daytime highs don't always have to come in the afternoon hours. It's just more typical, of course. So these were in the early part of the day before we had those rain showers, and in some cases some soaking rains that are continuing on into eastern Ontario, especially, that kind of worked through. And those winds changed direction and those temperatures changed as well. It was nice to get a few sunny breaks that came back in the later afternoon. And of course, through the overnight, we're getting into some clearing, with that exception further east. Even some of those isolated storms from earlier have pretty much dissipated from southwestern Ontario in terms of that activity. So tomorrow we'll have clear skies to begin into Windsor and Sarnia and London, through those regions, but getting into a mix of sun and cloud through much of the midday period through Toronto, and then late day clearing into the GTA. So we're really going to turn things around. We do have a system that's going to come in late day on Wednesday, and that's going to bring some wet weather back to us. So I'm going to talk about that in more detail coming up. Your low tonight 8 and tomorrow 16 for the daytime high, Kelda.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. Welcome back. Dozens of Mississauga home buyers say their deposits are at stake after a development project went sideways. The builder canceled the project and sold the land. The company says it will return the buyers' deposit money, but only if the would-be homeowners agree not to sue. Angelina King explains.
For the last 3 years, Javed Yusuf has been visiting this empty lot, waiting for his family's home to be built so he could finally bring his father from Pakistan to move in with them.
Because he's getting old, right? So the thing is, like, it's an honor for us when our parents, when they live with us.
But his father remains in Pakistan, and Yusuf's plans are in limbo. He paid a $150,000 deposit on a pre-construction home in Longview Ravine Estates, what was supposed to be a 45-property development in Mississauga. But the builder, Exquisite Bay Development, canceled the project and sold the land last month. And buyers say they weren't notified. Instead, they got letters.
The vendor hereby terminates
stating they violated their sales agreement, most of them for not providing correct paperwork, and therefore Exquisite Bay is keeping their deposits unless they agree not to sue. But buyers say they did nothing wrong.
It feels like they're holding our money hostage.
It was gut-wrenching. It was a shock to my family.
The company says it had to cancel the project because of circumstances beyond its control. In a statement saying in part, "We are and have been acting in good faith and in an honorable manner in a difficult situation."
There is personal liability.
This real estate lawyer says whichever party wins the provincial election should enact better buyer protection for pre-construction sales, including legislation that allows them to register their purchase agreement against the land.
I wish one government would step up and actually assist those parties who are going forward with the biggest purchases of their life so that they don't end up in this exact scenario.
Exquisite Bay bought the land for just over $21 million in 2018 and sold it for $38 million. The buyers say they want their deposits back, no strings attached. But even with the money, they're afraid they're now priced out of the market.
It hurts me. Like, why would you do that to all of us?
Angelina King, CBC News, Mississauga.
The Canadian housing market is cooling off thanks to mortgage rate increases that slowed sales in March and April. The Canadian Real Estate Association found the number of homes sold in April was down about 25% year over year. Now, month to month, April sales were down 12% from March. One silver lining for previously frenzied buyers, a chance to bring back some basic ways to protect themselves. Nisha Patel has more.
A move from Vancouver to Sudbury, Ontario, in order to land a cozy dream home. Or so they thought. Swept up in Canada's housing frenzy back in March, Joshua Keys and his partner bought the house virtually with no inspection.
We felt pressure. We felt like this could be our last chance. So we just said, okay, let's go for it.
When they took possession, the photos didn't match reality. Junk everywhere, water damage, and structural issues. As if that weren't enough, it might also be losing value.
Now it seems like, yes, the prices are going down again a little bit, and we might be stuck.
Many Canadians may be feeling buyer's remorse. Thanks to higher interest rates the past couple of months, sales have slipped in 80% of housing markets. Some economists predict prices will fall 10 to 20% this year.
It wouldn't surprise me if we actually see the fastest transition from a seller's market to a buyer's market.
Ontario realtor Daniel Foch says the power between sellers and buyers is shifting.
Start exercising those rights that a buyer's market gives you, the right to inspect a property, the right to include a financing condition.
Experts also caution that in a cooling market, overbidding can be especially risky, as banks may appraise the home at a lower price than expected.
What it puts a home buyer on the hook for in terms of an appraisal coming in low is that the home buyer would be responsible to cover the additional costs.
A reminder that in a market that's quickly changing, it's best to be prepared.
Really make sure you do your due diligence, or else people will take advantage of your ignorance.
It could help avoid costly mistakes for what is most often the biggest purchase of a lifetime. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's go back to Colette now with a more detailed look at your forecast. And Colette, these relatively cooler temperatures sticking around for the next couple of days, and then they go back up.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be seeing. So yes, not even seasonal, a little bit below for a few days. And once they do go back up, the only thing is it's not going to be quite as long a run of those temperatures above seasonal that we're just coming off of. But still, this is how the pattern looks. So we do have a cooler breeze, of course, tonight. We even saw that coming in through the afternoon hours today. It lingers into tomorrow, just shifts a little bit in terms of direction, those cooler temperatures. But I put mild because you know what? It's still pleasant. We're still talking mid-teens. It's not like, it's going to be cold. It's just that not up there where they were in the 20s. And then we do get some rain coming back into the forecast. And I know there's some just exiting eastern Ontario tonight, but that rain coming back into the GTA as we're looking a little later in the day on Wednesday. So just kind of walking you through things. Some sunshine because of the clearing we've got tonight mixed with the clouds in the morning hours. And then we get into more cloud cover through the afternoon tomorrow. And then we should get some breaks later on. You'll start off with more sun into southwestern Ontario and still dealing with some of that rain activity into the east. But once we get that clearing, we get that Tuesday night. We'll start off Wednesday from the east through to the Golden Horseshoe with sunshine. But rain starts to push in earlier towards Windsor, over towards Leamington, up towards Sarnia. And eventually that rain will make its way later on Wednesday towards the Golden Horseshoe. And once it gets to the west end of Lake Ontario, the timing looking like maybe western areas will start to see that around 7 or 8, but even later than that into the city. So I'll keep an eye on the timing for that for you. So much of the day Wednesday actually dry. There are those winds just shifting a little more westerly component to northwesterly. As we go through the day, they'll get a little bit lighter into tomorrow afternoon. Overnight tonight, those breezy conditions with the winds kind of changing around, but 5 for your low in Sarnia and for Chatham-Kent, around 6 London, but slightly milder there. Windsor over towards Leamington, and for us in Toronto, a low of 8 degrees. You'll find 7 into Markham and 9 into St. Catharines. And then a couple of days, highs around 16, and there it is. That warm-up comes towards the end of the week, and then it gently comes back down into the weekend. Hilda?
Thanks so much, Colette. And finally tonight, there was plenty of adrenaline and speed on display at a racing championship over the weekend, but no gas at all.
Whoa, whoa! Wow, that was intense.
This was the first electric scooter championship held on a route through the British capital. 30 men and women competed in the event in a series of races to determine a winner. A Swiss rider picked up first place, followed by a British competitor and one from India. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and we are preempted at 11 because of hockey. Have a great night, everyone.